episode of Beyond the Pages. And today we have Sonny Hudson. Sonny, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks very much for having me on.
So, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm based in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I'm primarily an author of murder suspense thrillers. I've written three of those. I have a fourth one underway now. I've also written one political action thriller or spy novel, sort of in the following in the footsteps of people like Robert Ludlum or Tom Clancy or Vince Flynn. So people often ask me which one's my favorite. I'm like, that's trying to pick your favorite child or your favorite pet, right? It's kind of difficult, but um, I've had a long career in the technology arena, working for some of the biggest corporations on the Fortune 500 worldwide in the technology arena. So I tend to weave a little bit of that into my stories as well. So it always tries to keep it interesting and try to not make it so technical that people have to be an engineer, but they can enjoy some of the new things they hear about or read about in the news. Get
Yeah,
those incorporated into the stories.
that's great. And I know you have, let's start with your series. Um,
Mhm.
can you tell us a bit about the series?
Sure. Well, the series consists of three books in the murder suspense thriller. The first one was called The Murder Game, which came out in 2022, and that was followed by Blitz Glamour Murder, and in 23. And just this past September, I came out with my latest, which is called Blood and Vengeance. And I'm working on a fourth one now, tentatively titled The Pacific Coast Highways or PCH Murders, but that may change. And it follows two female lead protagonists, Jessica Jansen, a female FBI agent, and a female investigative reporter named Kristyn Reynolds. And they are drawn into investigations of some serial killings. So I really, really enjoy following it, especially with the two female lead characters there
Mm.
instead of the usual big brawny special operations guys, from the SEAL team or whatever. I find it, much more fulfilling based on primarily women characters.
So, because you're a man, how hard was
Mhm.
it for you to develop those women characters?
I don't. I hope I did it well. So to me, I didn't feel like it was difficult to do, but maybe I'm giving myself too much credit. Luckily, a lot of my beta readers are female, and they thought, I hit the mark really well, especially in their growing relationship over time. So I feel good about that. But again, I just think sometimes the female characters, especially in something like whether it be a spy novel or investigative, mystery like these,
Mm.
murder suspense thriller. It's nice to have them where you really get to rely on the women's intuition, the women's brains, the women's doggedness. They're not just out there, beating people up. Not that they won't, whip out the weapons if they need to, but they're solving it because of their brains and people often underrating them. So I not only go with a lot of female characters there in the two leads, but as I've introduced characters, maybe for just one of the books, like maybe a chief of police in one book that was also female. There's a lot of other strong female characters have been there forever, and I'm really liking that.
That's great. I read your books and I enjoy it. So the female characters are actually really well done. Um, which I like. Like sometimes you have those books and you actually can see, okay, this female character is really written by a man. Sorry, everybody, for the dog barking in the background. That's not my dog, it's the neighbors. Uh,
Usually it would be mine laying here right beside me barking, but luckily he's being quiet tonight.
the timing is always perfect, isn't it? So, what was your inspiration behind the series? And did you already knew it would be a series before you started it?
I think as I was developing the idea around the first book, I definitely saw it as a series where I could really grow the relationship between the two women, expand on that, and evolve beyond just because they literally meet in the first book, which was the murder game. But let me explain what the real impetus was for writing that book. It was a I actually wrapped it into like the first one or two chapters of the book. Of course, I fictionalized it a little bit. It happened to me, not to this off-duty FBI agent or whatever. But in Dallas Fort Worth Airport, which I tended
Mm.
to travel through a lot on business and changing planes, I was there one Friday afternoon, and I was on the SkyTrain, which moves between the terminals, and a gentleman dropped his wallet. I didn't notice it till he'd stepped off the train, but I grabbed it. I tried to catch him so I could return it to him, but he gone away. So I thought I would just go onto my terminal and then turn it into the Dallas Fort Worth Police or the TSA.
Mm.
But I looked in the wallet so I could maybe see if I could have it paged. But when I looked in the wallet, there was nothing in the wallet other than three different IDs from three different states with three different addresses and three different pictures and three different names of the same guy. So
Oh.
that got me thinking, well, this guy must not be up to anything good, right? It's not like he was a
Mm.
young kid trying to have a fake ID for buying alcohol. This guy was
Yeah.
probably late 20s, early 30s. So I did turn in his wallet to the Dallas Fort Worth police and kind of subtly said his IDs are inside, so they would look. But I went to my gate and whipped out a legal pad. And I started writing my ideas for a book just from that event. And that's what led it. Again, you get your inspiration from the weirdest places, but that inspired me to write this book. And then I was thinking it could be a series with these characters, and it's led on to again, two other books already published, another one on the way.
My God. Like, you just caught some CIA agents.
I'm thinking though that no CIA agent or spy of any kind would be so clumsy as to drop a wallet with three IDs in it.
True.
So, but again, I don't want to speculate on necessarily what he was doing, but
Mm.
at least as I wrote him in the book, he was not a nice guy. He deserved everything bad that happened to him after that.
You just made him in the biggest villain ever seen.
Exactly.
So your writing process, like how does a normal day look like for you?
Well, when I was still working full time, I retired, if you will, from full time work a little over 2 years ago. When I was working full time and traveling two or three times a month, I was a lot more disciplined. You know, whether it was writing in hotels or writing on the planes, or if I wasn't home working all day and then writing a couple hours in the evening, I was much more disciplined. Now that I have so much more time on my hands, I find a million distractions that keeps me from doing it. I'm not nearly as disciplined as I should be, as my current work in progress would attest. Um, whether it's things
Mm.
to do around the house or things that just need to get done, or doom scrolling on Instagram, whatever it is, can find a million distractions and to keep me from writing. I need to do better about that. But if I can sit down and write, for a couple hours a day on when I'm really working well,
Yeah.
or even if it's just a couple hours a week, I usually find that for me, just after dinner time works best. For some writers, they say it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning before everyone gets up. Everyone's got their differences, but for me, it's sitting right here. It's I've got a Coke Zero open if it's during the day. I might have a glass of red wine open if it's in the evening, sitting here beside me, whatever it may be. Uh, and then again, if I can set aside the distractions, especially again social media, I can usually get on a roll. And if I can do, say 1,000 words over the course of an hour and a half, hour and a half, 2 hours, I feel like I've gotten something accomplished and moved the ball forward.
I think that's a good process. Um, but then we have like, as any other writer, you must be struggling sometimes with writer's block. How do you
Oh, absolutely.
tackle those wonderful, wonderful
It,
moments?
well, for me, I just got to step away. I mean, again, if I sit here and try and struggle with it, I'll just wind up, going down a rat hole on social media. I will usually uh, uh, sit down and read another book from another author
Mm,
to clear my mind. I might watch something on, TV or Netflix, whatever the case may be. If it's something that really doesn't go away after, a few days, I might go out on my boat, during the nice time of year
yeah.
and spend some time there. That's my place of, peace. And usually I'll come back and feel, a little more inspired to get to it. So I don't think it's often writer's block in the true sense
Mm,
of I don't know where to go with a story. It's just more a matter of getting the motivation to keep going.
yeah. So you just said that you like to read when you're just not motivated at all
Sure.
to write. So are there any authors that are an inspiration to you or that you really love to read, like any genre?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, my favorite genres are both the political action thrillers, which
Hmm.
is like the very first book of mine that I wrote called Let the Truth Be Told.
Yeah.
That's the only one not in the series with the murder suspense thrillers, if you will. But that's very much in the vein of some of my favorite authors like Robert Ludlum or uh, Vince Flynn, for example. But the newer books, the murder thrillers, those are more along the lines of like a David Baldacci or James Patterson or Trisha Cornwell, J.D. Robb. I read all of them, and I read them voraciously. Especially like a David Baldacci, who's my favorite author. If he's got a book coming out, I mean, I've got it to order. I'm waiting for it. The day it's released, I probably have started it and finished it. In one sitting. It's just um, I find it inspiring to read others that really I admire their writing, I admire their
Mm.
storytelling, and I say I'd like to be like them, but they have the talent, and I hope to be in their shadow a little bit anyway.
Well, you have the talent as well. Like I really enjoyed reading the books. So, and I like it. Like you just named some of my favorites as well. Like my bookshelves are filled with James Patterson and Patricia
Hmm.
Cornwell as well. Like I love their writing style. I love how they, and I like the thrillers. I like the crime. I like the solving and figuring out who did what. So
Exactly.
they're brilliant.
Oh yes,
To be honest, like
absolutely.
I can understand that you're like, okay, I'd rather read this book than actually write
Yes.
because you can't stop.
But what's bad is when so many of them come out right together, or right close together. It's like I'm never going to get back to my writing if they don't stop releasing books.
And you can't put them down. It's
Yeah.
the moment you start, like, oh, is it 5 o'clock already? And you finish it. You just finish them in one setting. So, yeah, I definitely love them too. So you just gave a little glimpse of your first book. So can you
Mhm.
tell us a bit more about that one?
That first book, I'm sorry, you said?
Yeah, your political.
Oh, the political action thriller. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
Let the Truth Be Told. That's the first one I wrote. And that one kind of started off just a little bit of joking with friends, talking about, where I was having some differences of opinion with them about politics that was going on at the time back in 2007, 2008. And
Wow.
I started I started writing the book then, and then I realized like what I'm writing about, expressing my opinion in places here could really be words I'm putting in a character's mouth. And I took it from there and I really expanded it out to the whole book, which is the longest book also I've ever written.
Mm.
Probably, gosh, 50 or 80 pages longer than my murder thrillers. But I really still love the story, I have to admit. It's based on the UVA professor and his fiance, who's a grad student at UVA. And he's teaching a class called The Politics of Conspiracy. And what they're doing is looking at various conspiracies throughout history, things like the murder of JFK, of Abraham Lincoln, of Julius Caesar, and the parts that the media and word of mouth played and keep those conspiracies alive. And as they get to the point where they're studying the conspiracies around the events of 9/11, well, it triggers some awareness in some certain government agencies that
Mm,
don't want people looking around. And that sets things in motion
mm,
to keep them from keeping on their search, I guess is the best way to put it. And again, I still love the story because it takes place near me,
yeah.
Charlottesville, Virginia, UVA, a lot in DC and Annapolis, and even some here locally where I live in Williamsburg and surrounding area. It takes place on boats, which I love. The main character, loves to cook, and he's a gentleman farmer and loves wine, and so you kind of write what you know, right? And some of you bleeds into
Definitely.
the characters for
Mm,
right or wrong, and but the book did pretty well. But the funny thing is, I still carry to every signing that I do now, and I sell as many of those books as I do my new murder thrillers, especially if I'm up around DC area. The people see the picture of the Capitol on the cover and the Washington Monument on the back. Uh,
yes.
I go through copies of those like it's going out of style. I love it. Yeah.
It looks pretty good. I haven't read that one yet, so it will be the next on my list, Sonny.
Thank
Um,
you.
so when we are talking about the characters and what you put in there, like really looking at character development, like how do you approach it? Is there a lot of you inside of your characters, not just the male from the first book, but the girls as well? Like how much do you put in there?
Admittedly, even though they're the female characters that lead, there is some of me in there, and they, it's what they like, the things they like to do, the nice wine, the nice food, the restaurants. It's the places they like to go,
Hmm.
and part of me chooses the places they like to go based on, of course, on places I like to go, but also places I think are great settings for the books. Like
Yeah.
in Glitz Clam Murder, that takes place in Hollywood, Los Angeles, and Hollywood, which I like, but don't love as much as the next book after that, where they're vacationing after they finish the movie involved in Glitz Glamour Murder. They go on vacation up in Napa Valley, which is to me the Holy Land, and that's where Blood and Vengeance takes place. That and some other wine country areas in
Mm,
California. They go to many of the restaurants that I love. They go to many of the wineries that I love. They see some of the people that I know and love. You know, I kind of write all that into it. And it's also the reason why many of my characters have the names of people that are
mm,
friends or someone very special to me. Could have been co-workers over the years that they've given me permission to use their name of a character. So yeah, I tend to put a lot of me into it, probably more than I should, because I have too many people who know me come to me and say, "Oh my God, I can hear you saying those words," not necessarily in a good way.
oh, so before when we were talking about your first book, you were talking about how you were sitting with your friends and having that political discussion. Was that a moment that you're like, I want to be a writer or I want to write it down? Or were you younger when you actually had that dream to become a writer or a published author?
I did have it earlier. It took me a long time once I had the idea to really get around to it. I tried writing a few short stories, before that, not so much for published, but just to get the practice. I, in high school and college, I could write, but I didn't care about it. I'm one of those people who would, for any kind of paper, uh, I would start it the night before it was due, usually, banging it out on a typewriter. And I'd get a passing grade. That's all I cared about. I didn't really, love it.
Hmm.
It wasn't something important to me. I was just passing a class. But there was a time way back in ancient history called the 1990s that I was working for a really large corporation, and I was providing pre-sale technical support to our salespeople around the world. And my group of five people, that was just a larger office, but we five people that specialized in my area, we were charged with providing a newsletter every other month to the field. Went to about 6 or 8,000 people. but it wasn't a little 2 or 3 page newsletter. It was like between 36 and 54 pages every 5 months. And we wrote the articles, we did the drawings, we
Mm.
did the public, we took it to the printer and got it published. We did it all. And once I got to writing for that, even though it was sort of, I try to personalize the technology kind of writing, if you will, throwing some song lyrics in there in
Mm.
the introduction, to relate to the topic or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I found I loved it. I didn't care about the rest of the job. All I wanted to do was write. So that's really what got me going. And I started thinking between that and the books I was reading from the Robert Ludlums and others of the world that I can maybe do this. It just took me a few years to finally get around to doing it. But once I did, then I really didn't want to stop. You know?
So let's say there is like aspiring writer and he is struggling. What would be the first advice from you to give to another writer?
I think I really like people to think about writing what they know and writing what they love and not trying to write for the market or anticipate the market because whatever
Mm.
they think is hot in the market today may not be the hot thing in the market by the time they finish their book, or if they're lucky enough to find an agent or publisher that it gets to market, it may not be the trendy thing anymore. So I don't write towards trends. I don't tell others to not try to write towards trends. Write towards something where you have the love and the passion for it. And
Yeah.
and more than anything, you know, just keep writing. Even if you're not successful in the first, or it doesn't go anywhere, even if you choose not to self-publish it, but keep on writing and try to surround yourself with some people who are also authors. There's a lot of local writing groups everywhere you go that
Mm.
you might get people to bounce ideas off of. Maybe become your beta readers, people who can share their best ideas or the experiences to stay away from, and or scammers to stay away from, whatever it may be. you know so I think those are the important things out there. Yeah.
No, definitely. So it, you are self published. What
Yes.
was the biggest obstacle that you were facing, and why did you make the decision to go the self-published way instead of sending it off to agents and going traditional?
Well, I tried to go the traditional route twice. I tried to go with the first book, Let the Truth Be Told. And again, if you roll it back only just 15 years, we
Hmm.
were may as well have been in the dark ages, or rather, the agents and publishers may have well been in the dark ages. Back then, they would not take emails. They would not take any kind of
Hmm.
attachment queries. They wanted you to send an envelope with a self-addressed stamped envelope for them to respond to, so they could basically write back and say, "You suck," and put it in your envelope to you, right? But and you had to find your
Hmm.
agents and publishers on a hardbound book that you might buy at like Barnes and Noble, so a
Yeah.
reference book, if you will. Well, now it's a lot easier online, with the
Hmm.
applications that you can use to find the agents and publishers that are in the genres that you want and maybe have interest. But it's still a chore. Uh, for the murder game, I submitted about 40 to 50 queries. I did not get a lot of love back from the people, for whatever number of reasons. Usually you don't get a lot of reason, but 40 to
Hmm.
50 agent queries and didn't get anywhere. So then I moved forward with self-publishing.
Yeah.
Um, with the Glitz Glamour Murder, I just decided I had an okay experience self-publishing. I understood the technology of how to do it, and
Yeah.
um, I wanted to keep to my schedule, have the freedom to print what I wanted, so I did that on my own. And for Blood and Vengeance, I had a list of about 8 or 10 agents that I thought I might query based on some other relationships and
Hmm.
people I talked to. Um, and I sent to them, but I said, if I don't get the responses that I want or any responses, then I'll move forward. And I'm only giving them 30 days before I move forward, because I had some timelines. Well,
Hmm.
not that I told them that, but that was the timeline I set for
Yeah.
me. If they're not going to come back within 30 days, and I figured this would probably be a no anyway, even if they say give them 60 days or 90 days.
Hmm.
I had a schedule I wanted to keep because I had planned a release date, had some signings lined
Yeah.
up. that I wanted to be out there with blood and vengeance. So, and I did have one or two small hybrid publishers, we'll call them, who were interested in doing it and working with me. But I didn't see where there's any advantage whatsoever in that case to working with them versus doing it on my own,
Hmm.
or the amount of placements they thought they could get in stores was no better than I get on my own. The number, they weren't going to be doing marketing, they weren't going to be doing book signing lineups or
Hmm.
anything else. So again, I saw no advantage in doing it other than on my own. And a lot of authors nowadays prefer to do it on their own.
I think it's a good thing. Like, and I think with what you say, like, you have already published and self-published your book, so you know what's going in there. So using a hybrid is it's just a waste of money in that sense, because you already know how it works, what you need to get your ISBN numbers and where to put it in so it can hit the market.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, because you talk many people I've talked to who've gotten traditional publishing. Again, unless it was like with one of the big five and they got a multi-book deal, with a six-figure advance, et cetera, they still didn't have any real marketing support. They still didn't really have any support for lining up book tours. They were still doing it on their own. They were still spending their own money out of their own pocket for marketing and public relations and all. And I've talked to some who've spent, over 50,000, one or two that have spent in the six figures on their
Yeah.
own to get their book out there. And that's not a path I choose to go.
No, I think that was one of the biggest issues I had, was the marketing part of traditional, because there is no feedback, there is no help, there is nothing, and you still have to do it on your own. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have the rights of your book anymore, so it's like,
Yep.
so like, if you're confident yourself, like, doing it yourself will be almost the same as traditional published. Like, maybe you don't have the editing parts and the headaches there, but nowadays, even when you submit just a few pages to an agent, they want that
Mm-hmm.
manuscript as good as possible. So you will spend cost for editing anyways. So
Yes,
sometimes, like, I think the line between traditional publishing and self-publishing is really close nowadays.
it is nowadays. It is. And technology's helped out a lot where it makes someone with a,
Hmm.
they don't even have to be a computer expert, but with marginal skills, they can, again, self-publish using Amazon KDP. They can do it with Ingram Spark. They can
Yeah,
do it with a variety of others. They can even, do some of their own promotions and marketing and advertising online through those vendors. I mean, there's ways you can do it, and we'd all love to have that personal assistant out there doing it for us, or one of the big five or big four
yeah.
publishing companies doing it. But until that day gets here,
Mm.
we'll all just keep, punching along.
So, as a self published author, what would you think was the most, or still is maybe, the most challenging part of self-publishing?
There have been times when the challenging was actually in the application. I just said the applications are not that difficult, but when the applications break, the tools break, that can be very time consuming and frustrating. I had that happen with Ingram Spark, whereas I was my last book, because I'm loading it in with using their tool so I can format and have everything nice. It kept glitching such that it might say like you're on chapter 2 when you go to review it, but the text that's in there is from chapter 18,
Oh
and when
my
you get to the
God.
next chapter, it might be on chapter 22. I mean, it says what chapter it is, but it's not the text that goes there. If you know your book well enough, you realize this is not in order. It had just jumbled it, and this had gone on, for days
Oh
of
God.
this. And then he finally said, "Oh, I think we have a problem." Well,
Oh.
yes, you do. But that delays things.
Mm.
things happen. Glitches happen. They sent me a hard copy of Blood and Vengeance that I ordered to review as which I had to order it to meet some commitments before I ever had my own review copy.
Mm.
But when they sent my review copy, it had the lovely cover. Unfortunately, in fact, you can see it right here. It had the lovely cover, but when I opened the cover, there's actually a book on Japanese something or other from World War II, a nonfiction book, was inside my cover. So it didn't do me much good as a proof copy, you know. So I mean, things happen. Just had to, continue to push on through that. But I think the worst part is feeling like I want to I want to get my books out to the world. I want to get my books out certainly all across the United States,
Yeah.
but I can physically only be in one place at a time. And so you're hoping you can do better marketing through, again, Amazon or others,
Mm.
use the right keywords, the right categories to get your books out there and get noticed. But working through that can be tricky sometimes. And the algorithms are sometimes your friend, and sometimes the algorithms are not your friend, I guess is the best way to look at it.
And it's changing so much. Like when I work with authors and you go into the categories or the keywords, one moment it's there, and then a month later they change it again. And you really need to be on top of everything constantly. Um, and I think that's where some artists really struggle with, like some really
Mhm.
having that full-time job. And then you need to market your book and just keep going and going. And it's so time consuming. It's worth it though, but it's time consuming.
And you learn a lot as you go along. Like, for
Mm.
example, on the murder game and on Glitz Glamour Murder, I had a professional company do the covers for me. I gave them the ideas for the cover. They created them, came out. I'm fine with them, exactly kind of what I envisioned. But then you learn it's like, I'm gonna do some Amazon ads for my books. And when I try and do the Amazon ads for them, Amazon comes back and says, "Oh no, we won't take that because your cover has a cadaver, meaning a dead person on there." So on Glitz Glamour Murder, a person is laying dead in a computer room. In Glitz Glamour Murder, the lady's laying dead on the carpet leading into the movie theater. No blood, no weapons, nothing violent. They're just laying there. I mean, they are deceased, but how they could be asleep and no one would know the difference. But Amazon's rules are they cannot have a cadaver on the cover and be used in ads. So I've never been able to advertise them on them, even though Amazon is happy to sell them, but they won't allow me to advertise them. These are things that you would have never known, until you try, right? But I'm not going to turn around and change the covers now either.
No, no. And it's weird. Like it's a cover, it's a thriller. It's come on. Like we had this discussion I think last week. And when I read, like I love my thrillers, but I'm getting so sick of the same covers. I'm getting so sick of that house with that one lit window with a silhouette in it. And it's just like, oh, please be creative, come up with something new. It's like I have 18 books that looks exactly the same and I don't even remember which I read or which I haven't. And that's what I like with your covers. They're original. They're not like every other cover, and it attracts me. Like, I really like it. So I wouldn't change my cover either, Sonny.
Exactly. And on the latest book, the Blood and Vengeance, I decided I was going to get away a little bit from the graphic artist created cover. And again, I used the same company, and they gave me exactly what I wanted. We tweaked it a few times until I got it. I said, "It's take place in Napa. I want somewhat the female serial killer with a knife in her hand, with some blood showing, and her looking down over the grapevines, like from up on a hill." That tells you right all the way, when it says, Blood and Vengeance, the Wine Country Murders, and you see someone standing there with a knife looking down over there, you're there, right? You
Yes.
know where this is taking place in wine country. I mean, and it's more of a picture as opposed to a graphic art, creation.
Mm.
It's not AI creation, but a graphic artist creation. The same graphic artist team put it together based on my request. And I think going forward, I might try to stay more to that type of cover, like I use on Blood and Vengeance for the others. Again, the one I'm writing now takes place in Carmel and Big Sur, California, just down the coast from Napa, and beautiful scenery there. I'll probably weave some of those beautiful pictures of the coastline into
Mm.
the pictures when I design the cover. If I'll get past my, procrastination and actually finish doing the book,
So back to your books. Um, like how much research are you doing? Do you have to do a lot of research for your book?
It varies. And again, the first one, the political action thriller,
Mm.
because it was based on, they were researching behind all the conspiracies behind 9/11. I knew a lot of them because I keep up with that kind of stuff, but I really dug into them and looked at what some of those theories were and how they've been refuted, if you will.
Yeah.
How people drill down and know that it's just a BS conspiracy theory. So I did make sure I had that accurate as I wrote it in
Mm.
there, even though, again, it's a work of fiction. So I did a lot of research around that. Um, I felt like I needed to be truthful in it, right? It's fiction, but I'm talking about a historical fact as well. On the newer books, I've a lot of my research goes into just trying to be accuracy around the details.
Hmm.
Like I've reached out to certain friends of mine who are very experienced, let's say with guns and police armored vests and things like that. So
Yeah.
if I write something about the person used this gun, someone would come back and say, well, that's not good. They use this kind of gun with this kind of bullets or ammunition, and oh, that kind of bulletproof vest you talked about, that won't stop the gun that you talked about, the guy using it. It has to be a heavier vest or whatever. So change
Mm-mm.
this. The California Highway Patrol uses these kind of vehicles, not this kind of
Mm.
vehicle. Again, it's not hugely important, but I like to be as accurate as I can. And I'm
Yeah.
blessed to have some beta readers with different skills and areas of expertise that they're not shy about, telling me, you screwed up. You need to change this here. So I like having that. So
Well, it's
I think the
important.
books I'm writing, I don't have to have as much accuracy as someone writing a nonfiction by any means, but I still spend quite a bit of time doing research on some of the nits, if you will.
Mm. Well, like it's important. Like you always have those readers that are nitpicking and like, oh, that isn't possible. Or and if you have your readers, especially your beta readers, that can help you with that, it's a brilliant thing. Because to be
Mhm.
honest, I like books being accurate. Like if I'm reading a thriller and it has like police procedures in it, or especially FBI or things like that, and I read it and it's like, whoa, that's not how it really goes. Hmm. So like the accuracy, like I know where you're coming from, like it is important, like not everybody cares about and they're just reading it and it's fine, but like Patricia Cornwell, for example, like her um coroner and how she's doing things, like it's so important to be accurate in those kind of things, I feel, anyways. So it's great to
No,
have readers.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And, because of my background in the technology space, I tend to try and weave some of that into my stories.
Mm,
And like in the murder game, it was a game, but it was being played, using artificial intelligence and on the dark web.
mm,
And again, I don't want people to have to be a software engineer to understand it, but I like having the reference to it because everyone's heard at least of dark web and artificial intelligence, even if they're not
mm,
experts. They understand kind of where it is. But I made sure that as I designed the way the game worked and the way the artificial intelligence worked, in reality, you could do that. I'm not saying anyone is doing it today, but they very easily could do that with those kind of tools. And it made it more realistic. And a lot of people reached out to me who are in that field even people who are early introduction people in the AI, they
Mm.
said that absolutely could be done, which is frightening.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So you gave a bit away already, but what's next for you?
Well, I think I'm definitely going to try and finish this fourth book in the series,
Mm.
and again, it's tentatively called the PCH Murders, and it will continue to follow the two main female lead characters, Jessica Jansen and Kristyn Reynolds. Excuse me. And one thing I'm doing, it's not really a spoiler because the only person who will recognize this is a spoiler probably is me. But I will tell you the two main characters in my first book, Let the Truth Be Told, actually make a real time appearance in this ECH Murders. And I tie it together that my main character is Jessica, and who was former FBI agent. Her special agent in charge, and now someone who works closely with them now that she's no longer with the FBI. Turns out he's actually close friends with these people from Let the Truth Be Told from way back when that book was current in 2008, and is godfather to their children. So they are actually tied into this newest book. It's almost like watching a episode of NCIS that's rolls into NCIS Hawaii and NCIS New Orleans or whatever, like
Hmm.
one of those kind of stories.
Yeah.
And again, no one will know it but me because most people aren't going to remember that book if they've read it. These are the same two people, but I thought it was fun. But anyway, I'm going to wrap that book up, and I'm debating then where I'd originally thought I'd do 8 to 10 books at least in this series.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that I might take a break from it, and I'm looking at writing a book with this time it would be a man who is a male lead character, but he's an assassin. I just haven't decided if he's a good guy assassin or a bad guy assassin. But he's also on the competition long range shooting team.
Okay.
With the custom rifle shooting, the
Yeah.
1,000 yards. That but he also uses his time as an actual assassin. And I'm just debating again whether is he like helping our government, kill bad
Mm.
people, or is he someone who's maybe for hire on the dark web to go out and take care of this, and someone's that is going to go after him. Maybe I'll change my mind and have Jessica, JJ, and Kristyn go after it. Maybe I will make it another book in the series. We'll see. Somehow I'm getting a shooter assassin in there like that from the competition. Yeah.
Well, I love to hear about it more. So when you finished it, please come back because it's a joy talking to you and having you on this show. I
I
really
appreciate
enjoyed
it.
it.
I'm really happy that you reached out to have me on with you.
Well, thank you, Sonny, for everything. Um, we will have Sonny his written interview as well on our blog with all different questions. So you get another glimpse behind the scene with the links to his books. They're absolutely brilliant. So buy them. There will be a link underneath in the caption as well. So go ahead if you want to read a good thriller with suspense, mystery, murder, everything in it. Jump on it and buy it. I will see you guys next week. Sunny, thank you so much again for being part of the show.
Thanks a lot. It's great to see you again.
Okay, thanks, Sunny.